Hello, and this is episode 2, season 1 of A Brief History of Nothing. I'm Ray.
I'm James.
And we're going to talk tonight about whatever comes naturally. Okay, first off we'll talk about our book review. This is the book that I read. It's Cold Days by Jim Butcher. It's in the Harry Dresden series. It's a pretty good read. I don't think it's as good as some of his other Harry Dresden books, but still in all, it's a pretty good read. I don't necessarily agree with some of the reviews saying it's a page turner. It's well worth reading, though. Worth the money that you invest in it. Anything else you want to say, James?
I like the Jim Butcher series. Again, as I mentioned in the episode, when I'm not a reader that much, but yeah, I like the TV series.
That's
Dresden Files.
That's something we haven't gotten into. There's actually a TV series of the Dresden Files that only went one season, but it was pretty good. They tended to mash a couple of books together to make one TV episode, so it goes through. But yeah, it's well worth a watch if you ever find it on DVD or on Project Free TV or one of the other streaming services.
Yeah, well, there's actually been on the internet, people have actually compared Harry Dresden to Voldemort and Harry Potter, and who would win in a fight between the...
My money's on Harry Dresden. Sorry.
Dresden?
Yeah.
I don't know, because, well, see, this thing...
He's never figured out when he's actually beaten.
Yeah, but he tires out. See, Harry Potter doesn't tire.
Yes.
But,
it's a bit of a what if, though.
It's a bit of a what if, but people have been nerdy enough to actually go on and go, oh, well, who would win? But I've read the first book, the Stormfront. I think it's the first book, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think I've read any of the books, although I have heard the audio of the third one. What's that one called again? That's the one with the nurse lady who keeps killing the babies in the nursery and
I can't remember what the name is. That's a long time ago.
That was.
Yes. Anyway, moving on, we just want to talk about the Jeremy Clarkson thing.
Yeah. So, essentially, recently he's been accused of having a fracas, is the term that's been used, with a producer. We don't know the accusation. Some websites say he aimed a punch at the producer. Sometimes he actually hit them. We don't know. We don't have any other further information on that. Jeremy Clarkson has blotted the copybooks before. He was on a Top Gear special where he said, "Oh, there's a slope on that bridge," when there's been a person of Asian background walking across a bridge. There's also some controversy regarding a certain racist slur that we don't want to say on air because it's particularly insulting for those of darker complexion. But he apparently said it on air, but tried to get his producer to use another take from that because he was choosing between two cars and he was using the eeny, meeny, miny, mo rhyme to choose between the two cars.
Yes.
So what's your take on this?
Well, Jeremy's a loud, bombastic individual by all appearances. I think that he'd have to be provoked. I just don't think that he would fire off unless something was said that provoked him into it.
Yeah, but also...
I don't think Jeremy is 100% innocent, and I certainly don't think he's 100% guilty either.
Yes, although he has said another thing he said, I think he said it on Channel 4 in the United Kingdom. He was talking, I forget where it was, but he basically said that unionists, the people it was people striking, and there was a strike on somewhere, and I can't remember the details of it.
He's a strident anti-unionist.
Yeah, he said that they should be executed in front of their families, and it's like...
Yeah, he doesn't. He talks first and thinks second on a lot of occasion, but I still can't see that he'd lash out and hit somebody without provocation.
Yeah, well, he's...
Yeah, but that's just my opinion, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, you always see them argue on, like, there'd be sometimes they do like the play argument where they, talking about certain things, but sometimes they do, like, there've been specials where they've legitimately been.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Now, I think we've covered Jeremy enough.
I think we have. I think the next.
Jeremy's covered himself in enough.
Yes, I think he's dug himself a particularly big hole, and I think yes.
Yeah. Right. Let's talk about Kepler 186f, the planet that they've found.
This was actually discovered in November of last year, and it's around Kepler 186, and hence 186f. It's around a red dwarf star that's about 490 light years from Earth, and they suspect it may be Earth-like. The reason they suspect this is because it's in its habitable zone of the star. It's a lot closer to its star than Earth is to our Sun, because its star is a lot cooler. It's an M-type star, so it's a red dwarf. But it is only about 11%, the radius is about 11% larger than Earth, so they suspect it may have liquid water, so the gravity might be right, and its distance from the Sun might be right, where it may actually have liquid water and an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere. So they're hopeful that we may find something. Once we get the James Webb Space Telescope up and running, we may understand its composition and its atmosphere more, but we just don't have the technology yet to really look at it that well. Because, I mean, this thing is 500 light years away, nearly.
Yeah, but a bit I find interesting is, well, I reckon would be interesting, is if they do establish that it is Earth-like and it has liquid water and it's habitable, you watch them figure out how to get there with amazing speed. They will suddenly crack all sorts of things that they didn't think they could figure out, and voila, we'll be heading off into space before you know it.
Yeah, the other thing as well is that ever since I think the late 90s, in 1998, and I forget who it was, but there was a professor from Wales who actually was originally born in Mexico, and he actually
Mexican Welsh, okay.
As you do.
As you do.
That actually figured out how to theoretically make a warp drive. The only problem is that it would take the energy it would take is the mass equivalent of about 10 or 11 Jupiters.
So not much then.
Yeah, if you actually work out E equals mc squared, which is energy mass equivalence, it would take several Jupiters worth of energy to.
Oh, that's all right then. So as long as it's not a big effort.
Yeah, there is. There have been more developments in there. They have changed the geometry of the actual warp bubble, so they are able to get the energy down, but it's still not to a point where it's feasible yet.
But, well, there are things that are feasible now that weren't feasible 30 years ago.
That is true, and we all know that Zephram Cochrane invented the warp drive in 2065 anyway. We know this.
Well, that's true, but being a Trekkie as you are.
Yeah, but can we... The trouble is that we may have the Borg. We have to get the next generation to come and defend us from the Borg, and that's when they find out about the warp drive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yes. And speaking of science, and I know this is an old one, but also wanted to have a talk about graphene and its implications of where graphene might take us. It's actually what they did, and I think it was in 2000. I think it was the Nobel Prize in, I may be getting this wrong, in 2008 in physics, I think, who basically, these two guys were in a room and they thought, why don't we get a lump of graphite and see what happens when we put a piece of tape over a lump of graphite and see if we can peel off a single layer of atoms of graphite. Because graphite is made out of layers and layers of carbon atoms arranged in hexagonal rings. And so they figured, well, how can we actually get a single layer of graphite? And they called it graphene, and it conducts electricity 40 times better than copper. And if you actually run a saline water over a drip of saline water, you'll have now I can't remember which way the charge was. I think it was a positive charge in the leading side of the drop and a negative charge in the tailing side of the drop, I think. Can't remember which way around it was. But they're working on graphene electronics, but the problem is that unlike silicon electronics, they can't switch them off and on as readily at the moment as readily as silicon electronics, and they can't get it as pure as they would like at the moment.
These things will come. I mean, remember, go back to the 1980s and the mobile phone.
They were huge.
Yeah.
You needed a battery in a suitcase. Well, actually, the concept of the mobile phone was invented in the late 40s. It just wasn't feasible until the 70s.
I saw a thing about car phones on television once, and it made me laugh. And the Italians decided that the way to go with a car phone was that you had all these little stops along the way with the phone jack, so that if you wanted to talk in it, you pulled up, someone got out of the car, plugged into one of these little jacks, and then you used your phone. And when you finished, you hung your phone up, unplugged it, off you drove till you wanted to talk again, and you pulled up. Could you imagine what that would cause, a chaos that would cause in city traffic?
Yeah, and because how do you, like, if 2 or 3 people want to use the same port,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Like, how far do you space them down the freeway? It's, I mean, car phone, I remember in the 90s, you remember car phones?
Yes.
They were still, like, the transponders on them were still pretty big.
Yeah, I can remember when I got my first phone, and it was, and it was one of the new compact models.
Compact models, and it was what? Yay big?
Yes, it was,
And they were analog at the time too, they weren't digital, they were only analog.
Yeah, my first couple of phones were analog, and then about my third phone, I think we went to digital, and it was so small. I mean, it actually fitted the palm of my hand, and I couldn't believe. I thought they're never going to get smaller than this. And by today's standard, now that thing was the size of a brick.
But now they're getting bigger and bigger because now we have smartphones. We can go on the internet and all the rest of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Watch YouTube videos on.
Yeah, it's a good thing to watch YouTube videos.
Then we're very good. Watch us. We're good. We did have a comment, by the way.
Yes.
Last thing, we had someone telling us we're good. Please, if the person who commented
and said that we're awesome,
please,
we think you're awesome.
We think you're awesome. Please keep, put it on your Facebook if you have a Tumblr.
Yeah.
Post it to your Tumblr. Post Twitter if you have a Twitter account. Just, if you can, that would be great.
Yes. We're really stoked to see your comment. That was really good.
Yes, very very grateful about that. And also we wanted to talk. We have my brother / your son, other son Lachlan, talking about.
Well, whatever Lachlan wants to talk about. Well, Lachlan's good for a good 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. So
down.
here's Lachlan.
Here's Lachlan. Shuffle over so we can all fit on the frame.
Shove love.
Yeah, we're shoving love.
So am I on screen?
Yes.
Okay, over there. Okay.
You're on the yes. There's the viewfinder up there.
Hello, people of internet. This is your captain speaking.
Don't look at that. Look at that.
Anywho, just a quick introduction to me. My name is Lachlan. I'm trying to put together my own YouTube channel called Lunatocracy. So keep an eye out for that one, again called Lunatocracy, over the next coming days and weeks. Fingers crossed, computers and cameras and everything will do what I tell them to.
Technology fails regularly.
Technology hates me. Anything more complicated than a fork, I'm lost.
So you're a wizard, because technology always fails around wizards. Ergo, using cow logic, you're a wizard.
Trouble is, though, I'm also not very good with magic.
So you're a failed wizard.
You're a failed.
Yes.
So if Voldemort came and knocked on our front door, you would be useless.
I could make him a mean cup of tea. I'm good at making tea. I mean, I hate tea, but I'm good at making it.
I don't like coffee, but I'm good at making coffee. I don't quite understand.
Coffee is toasted dirt. I know I just made millions of enemies there, by the way. No craps are given here.
Yes. Well, I can't drink. I can only drink mocha. I can't drink coffee.
Ugh, coffee is ucky poo.
Please, it's a word.
I'm good at making alcoholic drinks, and I can drink them. I'm good at that.
I can't stand the taste of alcohol. I know you once made me, like, I had a bad throw once, and you once made me, like, a very, very dilute bourbon and cola. I couldn't get through it.
That's because bourbon is just petrol with some wood dissolved in it.
Yeah, it is like a injector cleaner.
People of the internet, if you're looking for something to drink, vodka is the only acceptable option.
No.
Wine is just stale grape juice.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah, see? Science! Us is learning.
I can do science, me.
Us is learning.
Yes.
Right, so what are we going to talk about tonight, Locke?
Well, I thought I'd talk to the good people of the internet and the greater world in general. Just filling some time, just thought I'd touch on cars for an episode. I know people normally go on science and on politics and whatnot, so this is a bit of a tangent for this channel, but hey, live a little. So, here's the go. My situation is, my budget is I can afford to spend up anywhere from about $25,000 to $40,000, Australian dollars that is, because I'm at the bottom of the world.
That would be the South Pole.
Silence! Ignore him. Focus on me. Anyway, so about 25 to 40,000 Australian dollars to spend. So, I mean, if you want to put that in US dollars, probably, about
I can't
about 20 to 30 odd thousand US.
That's 35 top.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that sort of range. And in Australia, we've actually got one of the smallest, but one of the most diverse new car markets there is. We're spoilt for choice here, fortunately. Only about 1.3 million sales annually, which is tuppence for a first world country, but over 60 different brands and I think about 300 different models.
Yeah.
So the choices are pretty limitless. For me though, requirements are pretty simple. Need 6-speed manual, decent performance, has to come in red, and petrol, not diesel or hybrid.
Yeah.
Even so,
Red goes faster.
Red does go faster. It's proven. It's science, people. It's basic science. Anyway, still, there's plenty of cars for me to choose from, and I've been having trouble kind of nailing it down a few. But two cars that I saw today, if I could just give a quick review. First of all, checked out the Peugeot 308, the new model. The old model was ugly enough to induce nightmares and frighten small children, but the current model, they've really smartened up the styling. They've improved the engines, they've improved the gearboxes. It's just a much better car, and I was quite pleased to see that one, although it is disappointing to note that if you want a touch screen in the center console, you've got to get an auto. And if you don't want the touch screen, then you've got to get a manual, like you can't sort of have one or the other.
It's a bit strange.
It is a bit strange, but hey, if you want a diesel, you've got an auto. If you want a petrol, you've got a manual. Again, like you can't kind of get a petrol auto or a diesel manual. They've kind of basically said like, 9, you are having this car? Which is a bit frustrating, but you know, I was able to make something work. The base model is kind of what I'm looking at. The other car that I looked at today, completely in love, the Alfa Romeo Giulietta. I know Alfa Romeo have a bit of a dubious record for quality, but there hasn't actually been a product safety recall here in Australia since 2010 for any Alfa Romeo at all, any model in the range, which means that statistically, they're actually better built than any other car in the country. That's a worrying thought, that is.
Yeah, they're just pooing all over Holden cars at the moment. It just
should explain again for you overseas, not in Australia people.
the arm of General Motors is Holden.
Yeah, no. We have Holden. You have like Chevrolet and Vauxhall and stuff depending on where you are, but we call it Holden here, and it's basically little Korean rock boxes with a lion badge on it, and yeah, they're pooish.
The Chevys get in the Chevy brand, they get Korean rock boxes with the Chevy.
I know, like the Chevrolet Spark, we call that a Holden Barina over here, and it is a complete piece of poo. The Chevrolet Cruze, we call that a Holden Cruze. That's an even bigger piece of poo, in every considerable way. For the love of all that's good and right in this world, do not buy one. I know I'm not.
Yeah, because they have a rude tendency to just randomly catch fire because
Yes,
they
there's
feel
been a-
hoses are rubbish.
Been a couple of them that have just decided, hey, let's catch fire. Now, I know, I mean, it's a nice luxury feature to have a heater, but I think it's going a bit overboard.
Yes,
You
actual
want a fireplace.
Yes.
Although
No.
Jeremy Clarkson in Top Gear put a fireplace in his Mercedes.
Yes, but he's insane. I know Jeremy's in a bit of trouble at the moment, but I love Jeremy. I will defend Jeremy to the death here. But even so, he is a bit unhinged. if he's watching this, and I doubt it, but if he is, love ya, but you're crazy.
All right, well I think that'll do us for tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, remember to watch us on YouTube. Please give us your comments like the chappie that said we were awesome,
And subscribe.
and subscribe. Talk to you next time. See you in episode 3.
See
Ooh,
ya.
and keep an eye out for Lunatocracy coming soon.
Yes, see you in the Lunatocracy. Alright guys, see you later.
Au revoir.
Bye.